Thank you so much, Madam President. By a show of hands, who here loves to wait in lines? I didn't really think so. I saw no hands. Who here, though, has ever waited in a line before? Everyone's hand inevitably goes up. Yes. This is a subject that I've taught in my courses before. I'm an adjunct professor here at the university teaching marketing courses to undergraduate students. And I'm currently teaching a course on consumer behavior in which I workshopped this article into the lecture that I was teaching about consumer behavior. The article is specifically called The Psychology of Waiting in Lines, and the author is David H. Meister. What's interesting about this article is it was published in the 1960s. However, there's still a lot of relevancy to this article today. There were 8 main points, which I'm going to be able to present in a digestible way. Hopefully, it's not going to be too much of a behemoth of a list to give you. But before we get into the 8 core concepts, one of the concepts that's overarching here is the concept of the halo effect, in which typically a positive first impression of a person or an organization makes the perception of that person or an organization something positive. Like if you pictured a halo over a person's head at all times because they did something good when you first observed them, even if you observe them doing not so good things in the future, that halo may still exist over that person's head. So this is important because in a lot of business situations, the waiting line is a first impression to that organization, to that business, to that practice. Let's get into the main takeaways now, but just keep in mind the concept of the halo effect and that a first impression may set the tone for someone's entire perception of you or your organization. Let's talk about the fun of waiting in lines. The first takeaway from this article is that occupied time feels shorter than unoccupied time. This is one of the takeaways that's outdated in this article, because when all of us are bored or have to kill time, what do we wind up doing nowadays? Any participants? Holding up the phone, exactly. I don't think I was ever in a waiting room recently, where every single person in that room was not on their phone unless they were filling out paperwork. With the advent of the phone, we're not really ever bored anymore, or we can combat the boredom by entertaining ourselves in a variety of different ways. However, there's a reason why doctors' offices, for example, used to have literature or magazines and newspapers in the waiting room area so people could occupy their time. So if you do have a business or you, for whatever reason, are making people wait, if they have something to do to pass the time by, they're going to feel better about that than if they're just sitting there with nothing to do. Okay. Other takeaway, people want to get started. Sometimes it's frustrating thinking about, man, I was here for 10 minutes and then I got to the next waiting room and then I had some paperwork to fill out. I could have done that while I was in the first waiting room or whatever it may be. So because people want to get started, that's typically why in the doctor's office situation, there's a check-in process. There's a paperwork filling out process, because that is occupied time and it makes the patients feel like they're getting started. Next takeaway, anxiety makes waits seem longer. If for whatever reason people are anxious, it's going to make that wait seem like it's taking longer and longer and longer. For those of you that ever had to deliver a presentation in school or in class, I'm sure the day of your presentation felt like it was going by very slowly because there was so much anticipation and nervousness about that dreaded public speech that you have to deliver. Time went by at a snail's pace. Whereas if you juxtapose that or compare that to a situation where you're enjoying yourself, you ever been in a moment where like time flew by like that because you were having so much fun? This is the opposite of that. When people are anxious, it's going to make that time feel like it's dragging on and on and on. Similarly, uncertain waits feel longer than known waits. In an experiment that led to the publishing of this key takeaway from this article, there was a mock waiting room in which the same duration of a wait, let's say it was 10 total minutes, one group did not get primed with the 10-minute estimated wait of a time. The other group was given the 10-minute wait time estimate. Even in situations where 15, 20 minutes went by, the group that was told the time frame felt better than the group that was sitting there wondering like, what the heck's going on? That's why when you go to a restaurant, for example, and you're looking to get a table, if there is a wait, they give you a quote time. Or when you place a takeout order for food, sorry, my mind is always on food, they'll give you a specific time frame. So if you do have to have people wait, letting them know it's going to be a bit of a 5-minute delay, 10-minute delay. That may make somebody feel a lot more confident about that weight or comfortable with the weight. If they're sitting there wondering what's going on, they're probably gonna be agitated, they may even get angry. Unexplained waits are longer than explained waits. Not only is the time frame important, but why is there a delay? Let's go back to the restaurant industry. If you order some food and it's taking a long time, and the server is kind of avoiding your table because it's been a while since you've expected to get your food, that may make you feel some type of way. But if a server or a manager comes up to you and says, "We're sorry for the delay, we made your initial order, but we messed it up, it wasn't to the quality that we adhered to, we're remaking your order so that we're not giving you something inferior, but there is going to be a delay." In most instances, people will be completely cool with that because they know what's going on. But if you're sitting there truly wondering, like, why are they avoiding me, or when is this food ever going to arrive, you may feel agitated, you may feel angry. Last 2 points, or last 2 takeaways, unfair waits are longer than equitable waits. I remember being a kid in middle school, and I was in 6th grade, and the 7th graders and the 8th graders, the bigger kids, they would always cut me in line. It was like senior privilege or 8th grade privilege, 7th grade privilege. Like, what are you gonna do about it, you little 6th grader? It's like, you're right. And I thought, when I become a 7th grader, I'm gonna cut all those 6th graders. And when I'm an 8th grader, I'm gonna cut everybody in middle school. But I didn't wind up doing that because I didn't want to be like that. I didn't think that that was fair. So if you're ever in a situation, let's go back to the restaurant, where you're waiting and you got there before another party, and then another party comes in, also gets on the wait, but then they get their table before you. Sometimes people think, what gives? Did they slip a 20 to the hostess? How did they get in when I saw them come in after me? Ever an instance where a customer, if there's ever an instance where a customer feels like the wait was unfair, especially when directly compared or contrasted to somebody else in line, that's gonna make them feel some type of way. And I have 2 more takeaways, I apologize. Depending on what you're waiting for, people are willing to wait longer periods of time. If you're going to get something really quickly from a corner store, from a convenience store, and you see a really, really long line, that may make you feel like it's not worth that purchase. But if you're at a place like a car dealership, for example, getting your car maintained or serviced, you may be willing to sit there for 3, 4, 5 hours, knowing that your car is getting taken care of, so you have that peace of mind. So it definitely depends on what you're waiting for, people are willing to wait longer. The last takeaway is that solo waits feel longer than group waits. And this is also an antiquated takeaway, because with the advent of the phone and social media and the internet, are we ever really truly alone when we can connect with somebody in the pocket device? But that's why when you're waiting in line, they try to entertain you like at theme parks, or that's why waiting in line with a group of friends seems different than waiting by yourself. The next time you wait in line, I want you to think about these elements, and if you are responsible for an organization where there is a waiting room, or you're making your customers wait, just keep these processes in mind, and you could avoid a behemoth of a bad situation. Back to you, Toastmaster of the day, Madam Elizabeth.
And